As I prepared for today's message, I could hear my mom's voice. You know, moms can live inside our heads for a very long time. I remember her asking my sister and I the question, how would you feel? How would you feel if someone said that to you? How would you feel if someone did that to you? A conversation would kind of go like this. Hey Mom, can we have our popsicle out on the porch? Are there other kids outside? Yes. Do you have enough to go around? No. Then no. Because how would you feel if someone ate something really good in front of you and didn't share? Or the time she gave some of our slightly used clothes to one of our neighborhood kids, only to hear, I better not catch you saying, I know where you got those clothes. You got them from me. Followed up by, how would you feel if someone said that to you? I think these lessons came from my mom because she grew up poor. Experienced hunger, watching someone eat something in front of her that she knew her family could afford. She knew what it felt like to receive hand-me-downs, only to be told by the giver, I know where you got that, I gave it to you. She experienced those hurts, knew what that felt like, and made sure we understood the word empathy early on. Empathy. Merriam-Webster defines it this way, and I love this. It's the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another. Or as Brené Brown said, empathy fuels connection. It's the ability to feel what another person is feeling. It can be sacred space. You've probably heard today's Bible study or the story of the Good Samaritan a number of times in the context of a church setting. And if not, I'm sure you're familiar with Good Samaritan Hospital, Good Samaritan agencies, or you may be familiar with the Good Sam roadside assistance. No matter how you know the term Good Samaritan, it's derived from the story that we found this morning and saw played out in front of us from the Gospel of Luke. It's about the Samaritan helping a stranger. And as we heard in today's story, it opens with Jesus finding himself being challenged and met with a question. And when Jesus answers, he usually tells a story using images and people that the crowd could easily connect with and recognize. When we read the stories or parables, which are meant to teach us a moral or spiritual lesson, in today's culture, we have to try and identify with the characters and images by talking in terms that we can easily recognize and connect with. In this particular parable, the people would recognize and connect with the dangers of traveling between the physical location of Jerusalem and Jericho. Very dangerous, and while we may never experience that particular part of highway, what happens if we think of it in terms of traveling the road to addiction, loneliness, depression, grief, or abuse? And the dangers they present, not only for the person traveling, but for those around us and those around them that love them and have to watch them travel. Our cast of characters in this story are a diverse group, and there have been times in my life that I can identify with every single one of them. We have the lawyers, and other translation says it was a religious scholar, that tests Jesus by asking, what do I need to do? And looking for a loophole, he asks, and how would you define neighbor? How many times did we play the part of a religious scholar? testing and looking for loopholes, backing it up with a Bible verse, or finding a way to justify ourselves and our actions. We have the robbers. And while I may not have physically hurt someone, I've never punched someone, I don't think, I'm forced to ask myself, how have I harmed someone emotionally or spiritually with my words or my actions? Can you or do you identify with the person who finds themselves in a ditch, the one who has experienced the hurt? We don't get a lot of details about this gentleman, other than he's a male who runs into robbers, who took his stuff, roughed him up, and leaves him to die. And while we may never feel this kind of physical pain and being robbed of our possessions, we may have experienced other physical pain, and if not physical pain, then emotional pain. Those times that Brene Brown describes as a dark hole, when we say things like, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. Now, if you can't identify with the person who's hurt, count your blessings. If you think you would never find yourself or allow yourself to be in the position of someone hurt, I would rethink that. The road to addiction, mental health issues, grief, loss, medical crisis, cuts across all social economic statuses. And we may find ourselves being one who needs someone to climb down in that hole with us and say, hey, I know what it's like to be down here, and you're not alone. One day I was walking through our gathering connection point area, and as I looked out the windows out onto the garden area, I saw one of our Feed My Sheep guests sitting out on the bench. I'm familiar with the situation, and while I cannot even imagine what it would be like to be in that situation, I took a moment to ask myself, how would you feel? How would you feel if that were me sitting on that bench? But more importantly, I would want people to know about me. If I were the one sitting on that bench. I would want you to know that I'm a human being, that I was created by God just like you, that I long for human touch, for someone to talk to, that I matter, that I love, and that I have a family who loves me, that you see me and not my situation. We have the priest and the Levite who did nothing. The religious leaders who do church work, who follow the law to a T. Sometimes the very people, church community, our friends, and even our family, those we should be able to depend on, trust, who know things, and who we thought cared will cross over the other side to avoid a situation. Empathy is risky, says Dr. Les Parrott in a daily devotion titled, Love Like That, Self-Giving. He writes, empathy is diving into the water and thrashing around in the cold waves with that person to bring them to safety. Empathy can be exhausting. Now, I wish I could tell you that once I saw that Feed My Sheep guest sitting on the bench, I went outside and spent some time checking in and chatting a bit, but I didn't. After all, I was in the middle of doing something. I was heading in that direction. I had things to do. I'm the director of community life. I have community to take care of. And I had walked on by. My empathy quickly turned into sympathy. The funny thing, I cannot remember what it was that was so important for me to do that day. But what I can remember is that missed opportunity. Ask yourself, how many times have you crossed over to the other side or walked away to avoid a situation? We've all done it, or we may not physically cross over to the other side, but maybe we turn a blind eye. We try to avoid any kind of contact. We think if I don't know it, I don't acknowledge it, I don't have to do something about it. And besides, it's such a big issue. How could I possibly make a difference? In our heads, we're trying to count the cost, not only what will cost us financially, but time-wise. We hope that more qualified people will come along, someone who has the time. We are like that character in our video who looks in the hole and says, "Oh, yeah, it's bad. No, want a sandwich?" We can sympathize with a person, but empathizing takes time because we have to make a connection. Our Samaritan makes that connection. Now, Samaritans were not, like Sharon had told us, were not people that other people liked. They were from a culture that people did not trust them. They did not want to associate with other people. Other people did not want to associate with them. Jews would go out of their way to go around Samaria, just so they didn't have to go through the town where the Samaritans resided. A long history, long story, but the bottom line, a Samaritan who others thought would never stop was the one who stopped to help. Verse 33 says this, "But a Samaritan while traveling came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity." Another version says, his heart went out to him. In other words, it broke his heart. He didn't look at the man and say, "Oh, yes, that looks like it hurts," throwing him a couple of Band-Aids and moving on. He didn't just shout at the man, "Wait there until I get someone who, knows what they're doing and comes back," or "I'll put you on the church prayer list." While all of those things are and can be very helpful, the Samaritan is the one that's moved to pity. He gets down in the ditch. He binds up the wounds using his wine, his oil, doesn't count the cost. But he doesn't stop there. He loads him on his animal and takes him to a place where he can receive additional help. He goes that extra mile. The Samaritan was able to do those things Brown talks about in our video. He was able to take the perspective of that person who was hurting. Maybe at some point he too was attacked along the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. Maybe that's why he carried first aid supplies. He stays out of judgment, which is, Brown says, is so hard for us because we're so good at it. He doesn't ask questions like, "What were you thinking? Don't you know it's dangerous? Why are you out here? You should know better." He recognizes the emotions the man has experienced or has gone through and communicates that emotion by going the extra mile and making sure he's cared for. He is the one who is able to feel with this person. When the Samaritan gets down in the ditch, that is when he becomes the kingdom of God. When he is making a physical connection, seeing the man as someone created in God's own image, just like him, this is the sacred space Brown talks about. When we connect with the hurting person, someone struggling, someone else's pain, when the thing that breaks our heart is no longer an enigma, something hard to understand, but becomes a name and a face. It's no longer the homeless situation. It's a man named John who has an addiction, and he's trying to survive on a daily basis. It's no longer the poverty crisis. It's a young man named Danny from West Virginia, where it didn't matter how he got there. It mattered to a mission team that they loved him and helped him up. Dr. Parrott also writes in his daily devotion, "Because empathy is risky, it will change you. Once you immerse yourself in someone else's predicament or situation, you won't look at him or her the same way. You will have a new perspective that makes you more patient, more grace-giving, more caring, more loving." So back to my original question. What breaks your heart? And what do you do about it? Jesus ends his story by asking the hilarious question: which of these three, who were they, the priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan, do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The religious scholar answered, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said, go and do likewise. Amen.